carpet munchers. Today, on Promasters only, we're gonna replace an alternator. Isn't that exciting? You've been asking for this fucking video. Here it is. All right. This is what you're gonna do. It is a given that you already know you need an alternator because your battery light is on. You've already tested the system. You know that it's putting out, the system is charged to something like 12.2 volts or under, and it's not going above 13, which tells you that the alternator isn't working. The gimmick here is that you're going to buy your alternator from AutoZone or O'Reilly's or some such place that offers a lifetime warranty. And there's something to know about buying your alternator that you're going to put on. All the alternators you buy, except for the $1,000 ones from Chrysler, are going to be remans, meaning it's just a factory alternator, which was made by Toyota to begin with. It's a Denso alternator. And they were remanufactured by various companies, and that's what they do. They take old alternators, they take them all apart, they clean them, they put new guts in them, and they so on. O'Reilly's especially, but all of them, the vans were made with an option for a 220 amp alternator. Most of them came with the 180 amp. Now that 40 amp difference is not a big deal. In fact, I don't think so. That's the 40 amp difference at the maximum output, which would be 6,000 RPM and the maximum load and heat and all that. In the practical use, I would argue there's no difference between a 280 and a 180 amp alternator, and you're never going to ask it to put out 200 amps. What are you doing, welding with the fucking thing? But I think because of how many requests get made for it, the 220 amp alternator is cheaper, and it's a direct swap. You don't have to do anything. You just put it in, same connector, same physical body of the alternator. Anyway, the point is that you're going to buy it from a place that's going to honor the warranty. So 4 years down the road, when your alternator craps out, which if you do a lot of miles, they will. Alternators they have brushes in them and they wear. You cannot expect an alternator to last for 30 years without any kind of replacement or whatever. When that happens, you got your receipt and you'll say, bitches, give me my free alternator. And, all right, let's move on. Anyway, let's install this fucking alternator. If you go to a shop, if you go to a dealer, they're gonna lift like $2 grand off of you for this job. If you go to a shop, they're gonna look it up in the book. It books at 2.9 hours. That's probably about accurate if you've never done it before, but it is not difficult. But a lot of shops, they claim it's difficult. Oh, we've got to take the radiator out. Bullshit, you don't have to. Now, you can take it out from the top if you take the core support out and all this other shit out. Why the hell would you do that? We're going to take it out from the bottom. And as I say, it ain't rocket science. All right, I've talked enough. Let's get started, for fuck's sake. All right, it's funny. I made this video, how to swap an alternator, a few months ago, and none of the video came out, and the audio was all crappy, and I felt bad. And so today I'm going to take my time. Got the van up in just one tire, up in the air. You do it however you like. Two might be easier. It doesn't have to be super high, but we're going to be working in this corner here where the alternator lives. That seems logical. Okay, so what's involved here? Well, we're going to be taking we're going to take the belt off. We're going to take the air conditioning compressor out of the way, and we're going to swing it down here and hang it on a wire so it's not putting its weight on the hoses or lines. And then we're going to pull the old alternator out, and we're going to put the new one in. Before we do any of that, of course, we're going to disconnect the van's power. All you've got to do is disconnect the negative terminal with the battery, which is under the floor, and then we will proceed from there. Okay, you little hippies. So we've disconnected the battery, and I checked to make sure there's no voltage. Here is normally a plastic shield, which isn't here right now because this van doesn't have one. You've seen me take this off in other videos, but the basic guts of it is there's 1, 2, and 3 8mm bolts here. Sometimes there's a little T25 Torx bit, and there'll be one going straight up there and one going this way, and that gets the shield off. It's held in the back by a big 17 or 15mm nut, and you can just move it out of the way or otherwise get it out of your way. I'm going to leave it to you to get the shield off. All these bolts that are going to take out the power steering and the other ones, I guess they're all 13s. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah. But let's start by taking off the belt. That is done. And I have a whole video on this if you really want to know. Can you see over there? Let's assume that you can.
Hello.
Hello.
done like this with a 3A socket in the thing, and then you can detension the belt, and then you can pull the belt off. There is a connector here on the side of the AC. This controls its clutch. Squeeze there, and then it will slide up. But you're gonna find that for the compressor here, there's 2 bolts at the top that go in, and there's another one somewhere around here, which I can't, oh, and one at the bottom here. I believe that's it. I believe just those 3. One here at the bottom. That's right. So basically, 3 bolts. Okay. Now this is gonna swing when it comes down, which is all right as long as you're gentle, but we are gonna tie it up because I don't wanna put undue stress on the lines, and what I really don't wanna do is tear an air conditioning line. In theory, you could also take the coolant out, take this hose off to get it out of your way. I don't think I'm gonna need to do that. I worry that if I just let this hang, it's going to impede my ability to get the alternator in and out. And it won't. I can get it in and out from there. Air conditioning is that, and it unplugs from the side of the AC, and then there's this little T-fitting here that you're gonna have to pry out with a screwdriver just to get the wire off of it. We're gonna go in and out through that space, pretty straightforward. All right, there you see the gray connector, which is the control. It's the field and the feed for the thing. You can see that there's a squeeze. There's a 2-stage tab. That red side is gonna pop up. I'll try and film it, but I need 3 hands, of course. And then the red bulbous mushroom wiener head thing looking dealy next to it is the main power. There we go. Okay, there's that. And then as you can see here is just a big ass bolt there. That looks like also a 13 to me. Get on there, you piece of shit. I don't care anymore. Pretty straightforward, as you would expect. Okay, now that is the sum total of the electrical to your alternator. The alternator is held in, I want to say, by 3 bolts coming in from the side, but that's wrong. There's 2 here behind a plastic shield, or in front of the plastic shield, but there's 2 13s that sort of fork up at an angle into the head, and then another one from the front. The problem will be is that as the alternator comes out and down, these bolts are relatively long, and you're going to start crashing into the fan. That's why some people do want to take the fan out, but I don't think you need to. I think you're going to find that there's a finagle spot where you fuck with it, and eventually you're able to get the thing out. Getting it out actually isn't as hard as putting the new one in, because you've got to hoist it up in there, you've got to get one bolt in it over the shield, and it turns into a big jigsaw puzzle, but it can be done. But the bolt that holds the alternator into this bracket is behind the pulley, so you have to take the pulley off to get to the bolt behind it. Oh, that's better. Anyway, there's the alternator. This is the idler pulley on the alternator, and the bolt that goes there is behind this, so let's take this off. Now, there comes the pulley and its fancy bolt. Misconstrue that, but you can see right here, hopefully you can see, right here is the bolt that goes in. Once that bolt comes out, I have the 2 at the top, the 2 bolts that go in like this at an angle from the top out, and once that's out, I believe they will fall out and the alternator will drop down without them crashing into the fan or falling into the fan shroud or whatever. One shield, by the way, looks like this, and the 2 cross bolts go into it like there, and it sits up on your and rubs up against the cylinder head like that, and all it does is keep water and shit from and oil and whatnot from dripping straight down onto your alternator. If you omitted this, we've omitted it many times and it hasn't really caused any problems. You can also put it in after the fact and zip tie it on, because the only thing it is this surface is facing up and it just runs shit, oil or water or whatever, off the top of the alternator. No. It's a very long bolt, I should say. Because I'm trying to keep these two bolts in it. There's one that came out from the top side of the alternator, and this other one is now fucking stuck in here. There you go again. All right, here you go. Here's your old alternator. You can see it's a Denso, made in Mexico, hecho in Mexico, which is fine. Here you see your fancy overrunning. Maybe you can't see, but this is what makes your belt last forever. I have a video on it. You should look it up. It's a Kip U on belts. This is the new one. As you can see, I have it upside down. Their sticker says reman 220, tested to 275, blah, blah, blah. Does it give a date? Idle point.
Dead as the doornail.
Not surprised. You can see it's the same shit. They just take the Denso sticker off. But what you would be looking for before you put your new alternator on is to make sure, in theory, that the plug is going to be compatible. And I assure you it is. Now, I should mention at this point, a long time ago, we had a fuck of a problem. I had a fuck of a problem with the way the connector bites onto this. There was a slight variation in manufacturing tolerances of the new alternators, where this little bump, that little bump, which is what locks the connector in, was a little bit different. And I can see on this one, I don't know if you can see. I don't know if that helps. No, it's basically the same. It's a little ramp that the two-stage lock locks behind. But it was a little bit different, and it made it so that every time I put an alternator on, eventually this plug would get loose and I would get the battery light, and I'd fuck with it and fuck with it and fuck with it. And eventually I bought my own pigtail. I found a supplier for it, and I spliced that into the van, on the van side of this connector, and that solved the problem for all time. Because the pigtail just wasn't quite compatible with this. I was doing all kinds of things. But anyway, I haven't had that problem in years, so I think that was a limited time thing. And there you go. That's this side. All right. This, as you can see, is what the area looks like with the alternator out. You can see the one that bolt that's sticking there, pointing straight down, and as you see it, is the side bolt behind the pulley. And you can see the two bosses at the top that are shiny up there, and that's just the cradle that the alternator fits into. And that's it. 3 bolts hold it in. All right. It is a finagle to get it back up in there, but it can be done, and it ain't rocket science. Ow. Fuck. Impossible to show, apparently. I was able to put the side bolt in there and then balance the thing off there and then start the one of the bolts at the top in. Now the question is, for me, will I be able to thread this other bolt, the front side one, in through the fan opening here? And I don't know if I can even show that to you, but I'm going to try. If I do, I'm good. And then you would just put the shield over top of it and zip tie it down. Or you could take out the radiator, but I'm not doing that. All right, fuckwits, if you stuck with me that long, that was how to swap an alternator. Not too much fun, not rocket science. I guess the advice I can give you is the 2 top bolts, the angle bolts of the alternator, put them up in and somehow hold them in there into the alternator, and then put the alternator in place. you can put the third bolt, the bottom alternator bolt, in and use that as kind of a pivot point. But the problem is there's not room to get those bolts in and out with the radiator in place. The other problem is you're gonna have to do it with the shield in place, the little splash shield thing. But either way, you're gonna figure it out. It sucks. 3 hands would help. A couple of stiff drinks would help, but they always help. All right, well, we've had a lot. Have you learned? Is this helpful? Were you on the side of the road trying to do this in the middle of a snowstorm? I feel your pain. I have done it myself. All right, we'll talk in the next one. Carry on. Mwah. She's a goddamn lovely man. She's a